I'm Claudia Morales with the Music Division, and I would like to welcome each one of you to tonight's performance. Tonight, we have our fabulous guest, conductor, composer, educator, arts promoter, is Tania Leon. Performer too, pianist, is Tania Leon. And Del Sol String Quartet performing with us tonight as well. Yes, indeed. A little backstory about tonight's performance. Tonight is a celebration for us. The project that you're going to enjoy tonight, the piece, the premiere, has been in the works for 5 years. We started the project before the pandemic in 2020, in January of 2020, when I met Tania, and we started the process at that time. And then, of course, we all know what happened. And here we are. So I'm so excited because Tania has been so determined, as well as Jenny, to make this project happen. So tonight is a big celebration. So thank you for being here tonight. So I would like to start with Del Sol String Quartet. They are playing our instruments tonight, and they have spent 3 days working with the Strats. They were, and I would like for them to introduce themselves and to share with us what instrument you are playing tonight, and if you remember the year.
But again, I'm Catherine Bates. So I'm playing the 1697 Castelbarco cello, which might be one of the most incredible cellos probably in existence. I am not the only cellist to say that.
Okay, so somebody has to remind me. I didn't actually get to look at the year, but I'm playing on the Betz Stradivarius. And Claudia, I don't know if you have the dates there.
1704.
1704. Okay. So it's been pretty amazing. I've played Strats before, and every Strat has a different voice. This time I'm really enjoying because in the past when I've played Strats, it's with the time to get used to playing the Strat was always very hard for me, but this time it felt very natural. From the first time I bowed the instrument, which was kind of amazing. But I can tell you more about that afterwards. Yeah.
So I'm having the real treat of playing on Team Guarneri. So I have the Chrysler Guarneri del Gesù, which is from around 1730. And for me, that violin's kind of a double thing. It's not just that it's such a wonderful instrument, but pretty much anyone who plays the violin, Fritz Kreisler is one of the big sounds we have in our ear, and it's one of the, most recorded violins, and so to get to kind of inhabit that voice, or whatever semblance of making the same voice speak is just kind of a wonderful thing to get to do in life, right? It's as close as I can get to pretending to be Fritz Kreisler for a little while. So yeah.
Well, your family's from Vienna.
Yeah, it's true.
So I'm Charlton Lee again, and the instrument I'm playing is the Cassavetti from 1727.
19.
Here's just the imitation.
1727.
And as we were mentioning before, you've been working with the instruments for 3 days. Today is the third and last day. And I'm curious to know if you can walk us through the process, your experience from day one till today. What is the experience being with the instrument for 3 days, from how you started and how the instrument opened up, if they did, to you on the last day?
So I think we're all in a unique experience of, this is not our first time here at the library, and it's not the first time playing on these instruments. So they are familiar to us in a way. The last time we were here, the Castelbarco was a revelation to me. I was like, wow, I'm driving a Ferrari and I can do all these things. It actually inspired me in my professional career to go and look for a new instrument. And in the meantime, I've bought a new instrument, what's called a modern Italian from the early 20th century. And so my experience coming back to the Strad is like, oh, I remember this. And it was interesting that many of the qualities I found in the instrument I play on regularly were what I love so much about the Castelbarco. That it's just there's an ease to playing, there's a sense of resonance. You can climb up and down but from the get-go, the Castelbarco cello like has this resonance in a room that will blast you away. My almost 6-year-old daughter has been with us all week, and she kept saying, "Mama, the cello is so loud." She was like, "It's so loud. Can you be quiet?" I was and it is. It's just it's so delicate. It can make such a delicate sound, but it fills it fills the room, and it fills any room, a small practice room to the large concert hall. It does, because it's not played on every single day. The instruments do get better as we play them for several days. They sort of wood likes to resonate, and it has a memory of resonance. So the instruments like to play in tune, and they like to be played. But sometimes they're a little, they're like, "Hey, I haven't been, you've neglected me for, some weeks, and I want to, so I play a lot of like open strings just to get the strings vibrating, to get the wood vibrating, and it gets easier and easier. And then you start having fun, and you get to say like, "Ooh, what can this Ferrari do?" You're like, and you take it around that turn, and you start to push the color possibilities in the music of what you might not be able to do on your own instrument. We get to have a lot of fun.
So I actually love the violin that I own, that I play on regularly. But I was just telling my colleagues the other day that, it's like I have this like palette about this big, right? And then playing the Strad, I was like, oh, wait, I can add on like these palettes, And it's like there's so many more possibilities of color that you can do. And, I just love being able to just like draw my bow across the string and then get this like vibrant sound coming out that I can't quite do on my regular instrument. And it's just, yeah. And you don't even know about those colors until you actually hear it, and then when it happens, you're like, oh yeah, that color exists. Okay. Wow. It's really wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that it's so incredibly beneficial for us to get to play these. I mean, because it's what I find is that the instrument suggests possibilities I wouldn't have thought of, but then when I go home, I think of asking for it, even though it might not be as easy to get on my violin, it's still worth trying, right? It's like, oh, whereas, I play that one every day. And so I've sort of grown accustomed to, this is what's there. So I think it has a really long-term, it's a gift, even when we're not here, to have had that experience. Yeah, so thanks.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, and just like playing Tanya's piece, because Tanya, she wrote such an amazing piece. It's not the easiest piece, right? Right? We've been working really, really hard, and just to be able to play actually your piece on these instruments, it like brings out some life that we haven't been able to kind of catch before. And we're hoping that when we go back to our own instruments that we love, right, that we're able to kind of draw even more colors for your piece, which is very exciting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the second movement, we were talking about this sort of old grandfather sound in the cello, and and I was like, oh, the Castelbarco is like,
Oh yeah, totally.
whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, curiously enough, this is, as I mentioned, this is the third time I've had of being able to play on this instrument, and it's changed. And I don't know if it's maybe maybe at some point somebody made some adjustments or something. So it's actually this time it feels I I like it even more, which is great. Um, and I think I was starting to explain the over the 3 days. At first it feels a little bit like a little hoarse, and then it starts to open up, and then the more we work with it, especially like just trying to play like big double stops to get the whole wood ringing and ringing, and then the instrument starts to relax, and it just starts to speak more and more easily, which is and I mean, I wish we had another couple weeks, but who knows?
Thank you for sharing that. Speaking of Tanya's piece, this is for you, Tanya. So tonight's program includes 3 pieces composed by you, and they also will perform Esencia para Cuarteto de Cuerdas, which you wrote in 2009. Can you share a little bit about that piece? What was your inspiration, your writing process for that piece?
The piece was written for the Del Sol quartet, and it's called Essencia, which means essence. And we call Essencia perfume. And the thing is that all these different perfumes are memories that were perfumes that were actually used in my household, not to wear on oneself, but to clean the house. So they will put the perfume in the water, in the Caribbean. As you know, I was born in the island of Cuba. So in the Caribbean, there are tiles. And it gets hot. So every day, everybody cleans the floor. And the best thing is to clean it with aroma. And that aroma then, it's just like a ghost that hovers around for the entire day until the next day. And they might change, the ones. The ones that my grandmother used to use the most was agua de Florida. Yeah,
That's a common one.
it's a common one
Oh,
all Latin America.
Yeah, I'm from Peru for the ones who don't know, and agua de Florida is used in many ways.
Is it?
It's also used, side note. Okay, here we go.
Yes.
Agua de Florida is also used to take the, when a child is scared, this is a side note, when a little child is scared, we believe that this child has been maybe exposed to someone with a very strong energy, and this child is maybe crying a lot. So you might put some agua de Florida, which is like flower water, in some water, and then you give it to the child. And that's supposed to make the energy go away, and the kid will be relaxed, and something like that.
Yes, there's a lot of spiritual connotations in all these aromas. So this is something that is very fantastic. And it's like, there's another one, like agua de manantial is the kind of water that, that people go and immerse themselves in this water for healing. So, all these waters, we grow up with this. And this is something that it didn't really mean so much to me until time passed by. And then I have a distance. So to the point that sometimes I think of agua de manantial, and that happens, sometimes mentioned to you, just imagine that you are actually biting on a lemon. And all of a sudden, we feel the sensation of the lemon. I don't know how it works. But the thing is that sometimes I remember the association of my grandmother and the agua de Florida, and I smell the aroma. It's a memory, So, so that is what these pieces are all about. And there's a lot of, in this piece, a lot of influence of the music of Cuba in a certain way because of the syncopation, because of this vaivén. Vaivén means swaying that goes into the whole thing. And I am very grateful of the 4 of you for your interpretation and your dedication and your skills.
When you wrote the piece for the soul, how was the process of learning the piece? Do you have any communication, any feedback? How was the process of learning that piece back in the time?
Yeah. So when we were first learning it for the premiere, Tanya came out to San Francisco and we worked with you.
Yeah, we were
On
in the
it.
church.
Yeah, we performed in a church in the old Presidio.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that was, I remember one of our violinists at the time, he said that, oh, as soon as Tanya walked into the room, he thought, oh, I have a much better idea how to play this. Because there's such a force of personality. Yeah.
And actually, Charlton was the only one who played the piece back then. The three of us learned it for the first time this time. Yeah, because he's the original member. Yeah, still one man standing, the last man standing.
He called the soul survivor.
So close.
But and to be frank, it was like relearning it for the first time anyway. This whole time, and which was great because I feel like we just got a completely new idea about how to play it, and I really enjoy where we've gotten to with the piece, and I'm very excited for you to hear it tonight. I want to say that I mean Tanya was talking about the ideas of these like sort of wisps of memory. And sensations that you have from memory or from smell. And the piece definitely has a lot of that feeling of like there's something there, oh, and then it's gone. And it's like, oh, and there's something else is coming in. And it's really kind of atmospheric in that way.
And continuing in the program, you have two other pieces that you included in the program for tonight. Can you share with us the idea behind the piece selection and what we're expecting tonight?
We fought a lot about what pieces we were going to play in very typical style, quartet style. We have a lot of amazing composers that we hold near and dear. So thinking about what will be an experience for you as an audience member, who do we want to share? How do we create a cohesive second half? Because we are sharing the program with Jennifer Coe and her incredible violin playing on the first half. So part of it is thinking about the Del Sol aesthetic of the composers that we champion. And we've been doing a lot of work with North Indian musicians and embracing the sound world and the resonance that exists in that sound space. And so one obvious choice was Rina Ishmael, and looking because we really wanted to champion the resonance of the Stradivarius and the Guarneri and the resonance of the hall and what would be a really unique sonic experience that Del Sol could bring. So you're going to hear a piece that is really kind of exploring what can string instruments do if they sound a bit more like their North Indian they're playing in the North Indian Hindustani style. And we couldn't help but want to bring back the music of Ben Johnston. In 2016, we played his music here at the library for the very first time. He was an incredibly important American composer that no one has heard about, but is the most important non-famous composer, according, I think, to like the LA Times.
Not just the best.
Oh, the best and most, yeah. So his sound world is what can we do with Western harmony without just abandoning it? And he sort of opened a back door into something called sort of just intonation. And again, using resonance and using sound, the literal waves that are, bouncing around the room, combined in unusual ways. And we brought the 10th quartet in 2016. And so we really wanted to bring the 4th quartet, which is a piece that is based on Amazing Grace. It is essentially a set of variations. It's going to take you from one sound world into the next, really saying like what's possible. And for us, that championing his music and championing sort of this, for us, a more West Coast aesthetic that we have was important to us. Does anybody want to add anything?
So I'm the newest member of the Del Sol. I just joined 2 years ago, and I had to learn the Ben Johnston string quartet for the first time. So it was a steep learning curve. Just because as somebody who trained and all of us trained in like Western classical music and like playing like Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and all that. There's kind of like note notation that you read that you're familiar with that's based on the pitches on the piano. For the Ben Johnston, you have to learn some other pitches that don't exist on the piano. So actually, my parents are actually in the back. So I was like trying to describe to them what this means and everything. And they're like, okay, what? But then, yeah, it just, and I mean, to them, I was, talking about like Korean folk music because, when you like try to play Korean folk music with the piano, it doesn't work because it's a different intonation system. There's some pitches that align, but a lot of pitches don't. So they're like, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, I've been loving actually going into this world and kind of like trying to tap into some other resonances and other kind of in tune things that I'm not used to. And which has been kind of cool. So you'll hear that today. Yeah.
And moving in the program, the first half, Tanya, we have two pieces composed by you. The first one is Anima, written 2020, and the next one is the premiere. Can you talk about Anima and the context that that piece when it happened?
Yes, Anima is a piece that became part of a project initiated by Jennifer Cobb. And this is a project that actually tried to balance what was going on at the time, full COVID going around. A lot of musicians, which are depending from gig to gig, freelancers, had no jobs. So Jennifer called a series of composers. We were all at home. And she said, would you write a piece? Because I want to fundraise some money. And for each piece, if you donate the piece, we will be able to actually give $500 to the musicians that have no jobs, period. And so all of us composers wrote a piece. And the piece that I wrote, the title is Anima. And the project became really very, very important according to what musicians were doing in order to sustain the energy and the inspiration for all of us involved. The project got awards. The project had been at the New York Times as one of the best projects of that era. And that is how that piece became what it became. And Anima is like soul. So that's the piece that I feel that it was a privilege to be part of something that now is historical, because every time that we talk about COVID, we talk about the tragedy of mankind and how many people we lost. So that's why I name it Soul, because all these souls that were living. I just want to render homage to all of them and the contributions that we knew and the many that we didn't know that probably have contributed to the life of others, regardless of what country or regardless who they were. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Tanya, this is you have written for Jenny multiple times. What is that with your relationship with Jenny?
Well, we're musicians. I mean, it's like my relationship with all of you. And I'm rehearsing on Zoom and trying to get together regardless of how far we are from each other. And my relationship with Jenny is not only as musicians, we're friends, and we talk about our ills or our joys. And, I mean, we really exchange our emotions. And for her to ask me to write a piece, I mean, it was like writing a piece for a friend. I mean, it's very close. It's like, when we write a piece and we dedicate the piece to our mothers, for example, or to somebody that we really care for. Besides that, regardless if we are not friends, then when you're writing for another musician, at least in my case, I need to know the people. I have to experience them. If we are in town, I mean, let's have a meal. Let's talk. Let me, and also I would like to hear them play. I like to understand their technique, and their spiritual connection to the music. Because, sometimes I write some challenging pieces that needs a translation. You know, I write with an accent. Yes. And my accent, I mean, you can hear it, right? So, but my accent is not only Cuban. My accent is I like people. I like humanity, and I like going to places and learn about their culture, their traditions. It's like when I was writing a piece, you know, that was based on the culture of Japan. That's when I learned to eat sushi. You know, because I wanted to understand, you know, at least from some point of view, that experience, what that experience was. So that is actually, in this case, this new piece, you know, that is going to be premiered today. I was fascinated about what she can do technically speaking. I mean, she's amazing, amazing. And because, I mean, she can play anything, which is very difficult. And I mean, make it sound flawless. You know, I mean, she has a choreography with that. And I wanted to do something that was rhapsodical, you know, that was like a conversation between the piano and the violin in a rhapsodical motion. And at some point, of course, not not because it was intentional, but it came out of me. There are some traces of habanera in there, in the, you know, in that type of thing. And it's like when we were discussing my fermatas, that I told you, my fermatas are from the Caribbean, so they are a little bit longer, you know, because the palm trees, you know, right? So this piece has that rhapsodical thing, you know, that goes like this: the sea, is the wind, is the, and I think, you know, I was very, very moved with their interpretations this afternoon. I mean, to the point that I almost cried because, I mean, what they were doing, they were inside the piece, you know. I mean, and the last rehearsal that we had at Jenny's apartment, you know, we discovered so many things, and so all of that discussion got into the piece. And today they surprised me because they gave me a special audition. It was just but for me in the theater, and you were gonna hear it tonight. So I hope, you know. I mean, this is a fantastic program. You know, with music with colleagues that we know each other and we support each other. You know, and this is not a slogan, but I mean, your support to contemporary music is very important because the same way that we talk about Beethoven, or we talk about Nadia Boulanger, or we can talk about, you know, I mean, Claire Schumann, you know, uh, they they are like this Stradivarius, you know. We're talking about 1700, 1800, 1900, but we are in 21st century, and we have a lot of composers all over the nation, you know, writing all kind of music in all kind of styles, all kind of genres. And in a way, what we're doing is that we are writing a document. It's the sonic document of this century, which is going to be discussed centuries from now. So, I mean, your participation is so important that we actually listen to what is being written at this point. I mean, sometimes we might understand it, sometimes we might not. But nowadays, we applaud the Rite of Spring. And you know, when that was premiere, it was a riot. Nobody could take that piece. I mean, and you know, the anecdotes, even tomatoes were thrown on stage. And nowadays, you know, maybe because of Fantasia or whatever, you know, now we adore the Rite of Spring. And these are pieces, and when the opera Carmen was premiere, you have to read the critics. It is vulgar. That doesn't mean, you know, I mean, it shouldn't be on stage. That's scandalous. And now that's the opera that is the most played in the entire world. So therefore, I mean, you know, I mean, to see that you are interested in this new music, which is all for us already, you know, I mean, right? I mean, look, the piece that you're going to play now is aging, and I think that it's important, that the artistic community, which is actually um, writing the Bible of this era, have all of us to support, because being an artist is sometimes very challenging. Yeah.
Speaking of projects, Delso, you can share with the audience the Angel Island project. Speaking of new music, contemporary music, and telling stories, we would love to hear more about that.
So in 2021, we premiered a piece by composer Juan Ro, which was using poetry that was discovered inside the detention barracks at the Angel Island Immigration Station. The Island Immigration Station was the immigration station used on the West Coast between 1910 and 1940 because of certain legislation, specifically called the Chinese Exclusion Act. Many people were detained on the island from somewhere between days to several years. And what they discovered when they were going to tear down the building in the 70s was that there was large amounts of Chinese poetry carved into the walls. They've recovered over 200 poems. It's found in the book called Island, which is published by co-authors Jenny Lim, Him-Mark Lai, and Judy Young. So the oratorio that we premiered inside the detention facilities in 2021 was using those poems. We actually were able to do this at the Smithsonian with the singing sergeants, the U.S. Air Force Band singing sergeants in 2023 at the Smithsonian Asian Art Museum. But it has gone on to be so much more than just a single piece. We've now started a concert series inside the detention facility. So 4 times a year, we take the ferry boat across the bay, and we actually play music by composers who are alive and who are of various communities and backgrounds that all have relationships with the Angel Island Immigration Station, because it was the immigration station for the West Coast. So there are many Japanese who came through, including Japanese picture brides. There were many Koreans who came through, Filipinos, Southeast Asians, Southeast Indians, and many, many more. Prokofiev actually was detained there for 2 days on suspicion that he was a Russian spy. And they asked him, "Have you ever been detained before?" And he said, or "Have you ever spent any time in prison before?" And he said, "Only here." So it's an interesting history, and we use music to amplify the stories and to tell the stories of people who came through and to examine the complexities of immigration. If you are interested in hearing more, we have an award-winning podcast. So we're so excited about all the people that we met and all the stories that we created. We created this podcast, and it ended up going to the Tribeca Festival, which is a very homegrown podcast, sharing seats next to NPR and other large producers of podcasts. Charlton is the voice of the podcast, but the host of anchor of the podcast, he also composed the theme music. But you hear all of our voices, along with many, many collaborators of people who've been championing this history. And it just continues to grow, and in unexpected ways, our friend who translated the original poetry, Jenny Lim, has become the first Chinese American woman to hold the position of SF Poet Laureate. And so we are creating new music with her new poetry this year. And as Tanya was saying, our relationships, they grow, they build, we share meals, and we create art. Because we all need art.
What's the podcast called?
The podcast is called Sounds Current. It's available on all major podcast platforms as well as on our website. And if you're interested also in the music Juan Ro, we have an hour-long meditation and coloring book for sale in the lobby. If you want to take something home and have, and if you enjoy coloring or have children in your life who enjoy coloring, it's adults, so if you enjoy it. So those will be on sale, I think, after the concert.
I also want to mention that Tania Leon has a long relationship with the Library of Congress. This is her third commission. The first one was in 2000, Fanfaria, which was premiere at the Great Hall. The second one was Desde under the Kusavisky Fund. And tonight is under the McKin Fund. Tania Leon is also the 2021 Pulitzer Prize for Music honoree and the 2022 Kennedy Center Honors awardee. Tania, how has those two recent awards have changed your career or helped your career or propel your career, if so?
Well, it has been a very incredible experience. I'm saying that because, in fact, today, we were talking, and I was telling Claudia that for me, in my case, my life had been full of surprises. I left Cuba thinking that I was going to be living in Paris and living in New York. I left Cuba as a pianist. I'm talking to you as a composer. It had been a world of surprises, And also, I was telling you what happened. I didn't know I was a Pulitzer Prize. It was a friend that actually told me what has happened, because they don't tell anybody who's going to be the awardee. They just publish the whole thing. And when this came up, I was at the dentist. And I didn't have a phone on because, the dentist, they said, you have to turn them off. So, here I am, all numb, and all of that. Got home, started looking at the clock because I said, when can I eat something? And I started preparing a salad. And I turned my phone on, and all of a sudden, I had this email saying, congratulations. It was Frank Oteri. That's another composer, a good friend of ours. I said, congratulations. I called Frank. Frank, congratulations about what? Oh, you don't know? So, Frank, what's going on? Come on, don't play with me. He had me about 5 minutes trying to guess what happened. And then he said, Tania, you got the Pulitzer Prize. I said, what? You gotta be kidding. No, come on, Frank, don't do this to me. He said, go to the website, you're gonna see your picture. I went to the website, and it was my picture. Usually, and I can disclose this, I have no problem about talking about feelings and things like that. What happens to me every time that happens? I go back to my beginnings. My grandmother took me to a conservatory when I was 4 years old because they brought a radio into the house and I became the owner of the radio. So I was flipping the stations, and every time there was music, I would get out of the thing, start dancing to the rhythm. If they were singing something, I started singing the same pitches. And that's when my grandmother, about grandparents. That's when grandma said, she has something to do with music. And she rushed to a conservatory. They said she cannot start, she doesn't have kindergarten, she cannot learn the theory. Well, my grandmother was very resilient. And she kept going to the conservatory and going to the conservatory. Finally, they get me and said, but how she's going to learn the theory? And she said, don't worry, she's going to learn it. And the thing is that in Cuba, I'm coming from a very, very poor family. So what we had is a line for the clothes, So my grandmother and my mother would do the laundry and then hang the whole thing. And my grandmother would take the theory books and make me memorize the answers of the questions. And I remember the first thing was, ¿Qué es la música? What is music? El arte de bien combinar los sonidos y el tiempo. So I would recite this like poetry. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I have worked with so many poets, because that was my beginning. So that is what happens to me when something big like that happens. I got to that moment. I got to the moment with my grandfather. I mean, she actually, created this thing about the Tanya Project, And my grandfather came into the house with a second-hand piano when I was 5 years old. And every time I think about this, these people were crazy. You don't do that with a 4-year and 5-year. They were in a hurry. But I understand them now. And the first one that went to the university, the first one that, my mother didn't know how to read or write. I taught her because I was going to leave the country. I said, how are you going to write? You have to write me the letters. You see what I mean? So and so this is where I go back every time something like that happened. And this was mentioned. You can imagine, I was called and they told me you are a Kennedy Center honoree. And I said, what? Who's doing this? Well, they actually did a phenomenal presentation about my life. And I really broke down. It's on YouTube. You can see me. Because they put the picture of my grandmother for everybody to see. And I said, oh my God, look how grandma, for everything that, all the people that were in there, all these luminaries, even the president of the United States, they met my grandmother. You see? And this is what happens to me every time that something happens. It's not, it's glorifying something. No, it's like going back to my humble beginnings. And now that they are not here, but in spirit, I just want to honor all of them. So that's my answer.
We have to wrap things up, but I want to share with you that earlier today we had a conversation on camera. So we went deep into Tanya's life. So you can watch that on our website and YouTube later for your own enjoyment. So I have enjoyed so much spending 3 days with your soul. And side note, we went to the Lincoln Memorial. We had this adventure. So it's been many days of many adventures. And when I met Charlton last year, he said, we like when we go on tour, we like to play outside the theater. We like to go to park, to libraries, the street. And I'm like, well, DC has many monuments. Why don't we go to one of the monuments? So he sold me this idea and I ran with it. And so we went to the Lincoln Memorial and it was something unexpected, but we did it. And we have a video coming up of that experience. So you can watch it also on our social media and on the website. But I want to thank them so for their partnership and for being here with us. And of course, Tanya Leon for being here with us, for being so intentional, for persevering 5 years, for making this happen, for giving space. She has a super busy schedule, but she was intentional on being here tonight, and I appreciate you for doing that. And thank you all for being here tonight. Enjoy the performance.
Thank you.